Hi, I'm Tanya Gordon, as you know, and I'm here today with Laura Mackey from IO Health. Um, Laura's here today to talk to us about the importance of health and wellbeing in business as business owners and also for our employees. And she comes from a corporate commercial background, and I'd like her to introduce herself now and tell us a bit more about that and how the transitions, how your background has helped with the transition, really.
Yeah, hi, and thanks for inviting me to chat with you. I'm really excited. So, yeah, 20 years I spent in the commercial world looking after kind of big teams, kind of coaching them and mentoring them to deliver high performing results commercially. And I loved it. I had a great time. And then for a number of reasons, after I'd had my children, I kind of left and followed my heart. I decided I wanted to do what made my heart sing, which was kind of fitness and well-being. And I decided that given the life journey I'd been on personally, I wanted to use my coaching and mentoring skills to a bit more meaningful effect. So rather than just make money with them, I wanted to help make people's lives happier and healthier. And all the mindsets training that I'd had commercially to help people understand kind of what inspires them forward and holds them back. It felt more appropriate to use those skills to help them unlock their health and layer into that great nutrition and movement as well. I think there's so many pressures on us in our busy working lives now that are at odds to just like looking after ourselves. That I think it's good to encourage people to kind of get back to basics and just be kind to themselves and kind of realize that if you're not looking after yourself, you can work hard and have all the money and all the holidays, but we don't just exist for 2 weeks of the year. We've got to be healthy and happy for our kids and ourselves, and that's what inspired it, really.
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? And I think that's the thing, isn't it? People often go into business and think that, oh well, I'll manage my own time and I'll earn my own money and I'll be on holiday all the time. And of course, the reality hits, and it's really very rarely ever like that, certainly in early days, until you take that decision to look after yourself and actually start thinking of the lifestyle you wanted more and the time. And obviously part of that is the well-being side. We're aiming this a lot at businesses where they might not even have any employees yet. So can you tell us a bit more about the importance of looking after yourself in business and maybe some of the stories you know of where people have really been struggling and the change when they've then changed what they're doing with your help, what benefit then that's had on their life?
Yeah, and I think with all things, like even if you're the only person running a business, this whole concept when you go on a plane, they say fit your own oxygen mask first. It's really important, because if you don't fit your own oxygen mask and look after yourself first, how are you going to run your business? How are you going to be there for your family? It's almost like we need to make sure we put the right big rocks in and fit everything else around that. But we don't we kind of do the emails, we do the meetings, we do whatever we do. And then we run out of time to go to the gym or cook ourselves a really nutritious meal. And actually then you get into kind of this insanity loop of kind of deterioration. So I think it's really important that you really understand kind of what your goals and visions are and how health allows you to achieve that, and really understand all the things that kind of get in the way of that as well. So my business is inside out, because actually there's so many approaches these days. So I don't know, I'm using things like Weight Watchers and Slimming World, but they want to sell you like this quick solution, or like Instagram and social media.
Here, we are talking about this in January, and whilst it's the end of January, that is the month of quick fix, isn't it?
And it isn't about quick fix. And somebody who's got a habit and is into a behavior of kind of not eating healthily, frequently, not fueling their body according to their energy requirements, not eating from a breadth of food groups and filling their body nutritiously to work. Somebody who doesn't move around enough, there's no point just telling them to eat well and go to the gym, because maybe they'll do it for a few weeks, but they're doing it for all these kind of outside in reasons. You really have to get inside and understand grips with, okay, well, why do you behave that way? Why aren't you important enough to care for yourself well enough and put yourself first? Like, why does everything come before you? And I think when you spend time coaching somebody to understand who they are and why their life is as it is, and some of the challenges and the obstacles that they face, so until you do that inner work, it's actually the outer work is just quick fixes, or, you know, you can do it for a month or you can sustain it for 2 months, but not forever. And it's about helping somebody really understand why lifelong change is required. And it is lifelong change. And it's kind of incremental gains day by day, week by week, to kind of become healthier overall.
Yeah, it's funny actually. I'm just giggling to myself because consistency seems to be becoming my word of choice at the moment. In every
Absolutely, it's all about consistency.
Consistency.
Yeah, and when you say you're a personal trainer, people, again, if you like, sounds like I've got a thing for Instagram, but if you go on Instagram, there's people jumping around doing burpees, going, come on, harder, more, like sweat. And actually, more doesn't always equal more. Like, consistency is far more important than intensity, particularly for certain segments of the population. So, you know, a lot of people are recovering from COVID. Like, you can't, for somebody who's been through a virus or has been ill, you can't just kind of beat them up in a gym and tell them that's the way to get breathing again. And likewise, I don't know, women at certain stages of their life, so peri, post menopause, again, and their energy levels have changed. Like, fatigue is a real thing, and you need to help somebody according to kind of the life stage or the context that they're in. So one size doesn't fit all, and sometimes it's about doing less, not about more, but doing it in a controlled, structured, sensible way.
And perhaps, I don't know, targeting it at a time of day or time of week when you're feeling at your best and things like that as well, maybe.
I think so, but that comes back down to truly understanding the individual again.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to default to one size fits all and make assumptions about people, but we're all so massively different. And again, in a workplace, wouldn't it be convenient if everybody was the same? But they're not. We all live such massively different, diverse lives, and increasingly so. We're all juggling a number of kind of things, relationships, side hustles, main jobs, working from home, going to the office, looking after children, having more than one family. Like, life is crazy. So how you sit with somebody and say, okay, well, let's think about how we structure your day and your week, and when have you got energy, and when have you got capacity, and when have you got time. Like, you need to work through that plan with somebody, and then with all loving, positive intent, hold them to account on it. So
without beating them with a stick, you mean?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. So that the stick is appropriate in certain circumstances, but the carrot should never be underestimated as well. And that's what comes with getting to the heart of understanding who somebody is and what their powerful reasons why are.
Yeah.
So, you know,
now, because I have done PT sessions with you, and I think sometimes stick is required because it's
interesting, isn't it? Like, when we're younger, our powerful reason why is because we're living the movie of our lives outside in again, and we think, oh, I need to, you know, post this image or picture of myself, show the world that I'm like beautiful, I've got a toned physique, and like, you know, I want to look good. And then you have children and you still want to look good, clearly, but you realize that all of a sudden you need to be there for them as well.
Yes.
Yeah, and then a pandemic hits and you get ill and you're like, oh God, now I just want to be able to breathe. And there's all these things that can come in, and really unlocking what your powerful reason why is, and remembering it on all those days you just can't be bothered is kind of key. And I encourage people, when I work with people, we like try and visualize that. We spend time on Google looking at images that we find inspiring and then put them as a screensaver on our phones or on the fridge or something. So on any given day when you want to make a bad choice, you anchor yourself back into why ultimately longer term that's not the direction you're going in. So you have to build somebody a compelling reason to kind of take a course of action and change the underlying behavior and the beliefs, which isn't a one-off thing, it's kind of constant.
Yeah, and sometimes not just having the skinny photo of how you used to be on the fridge is not quite enough, really, because as much as we want that to be enough of the reason why, it actually isn't. to just change habits.
Yeah, and I think again, but our ambitions change, don't they? And for example, I know that running the businesses that you run, like ultimately being physically well and eating well as well helps you be successful in business. So like if you have, I don't know, if you had disordered eating, it'd be really easy for you with children, with businesses, you know, with your dog, with everything you've got going on, to miss your breakfast, then get into work, have a late lunch, like have something quick and processed, spike your blood sugar, then have a massive energy dip like late afternoon. And I think that's quite common in the workplace and in small businesses as well. So again, it's that mentality.
Many days, you know, cup shop, let's go around there. And, you know, I've always jokingly said, I don't know how people can like accidentally like not eat, but actually I have had days recently where I've done the same, and you suddenly like, oh, you know, it is late in the day. And the other day I actually realized I did feel a bit rubbish in the afternoon. Wasn't sure why. I had something to eat, although I wasn't massively starving. I had food, and then I thought, what did I have for breakfast? And then I realized I hadn't had breakfast, and I just dropped the baby off at the grandparents, come back, and I was gonna eat after, started working, totally forgotten that. I have only ever done that.
And all these businesses which are like, you know, eat well, we support work-life balance, we've got a bowl of fruit in the office, like quite frankly that's not enough. Like it would be far better for a business to be
still arrived.
No, yeah, but far better to be saying to their employees, okay, here's a workshop on nutrition, or here's some nutrition coaching, and actually help people understand that through the evening their body is still working and burning energy. And then if they don't have breakfast, it's like getting in a car to drive to Leeds and not putting any fuel in it. Like you need to have a breakfast that's kind of a slow release breakfast. So throughout the morning, when your energy is dipping, it's dipping slowly. Then you eat again every 3 hours to bring that energy level up. Because if we don't, and we just let people go without business, then we send them into meetings and like give them tasks, like their energy is going to slow down. Their hormones are going to, when they do eat, like depending on what they eat, if they eat the wrong things, loads of insulin will kick in, loads of hormones will kick in, and then your body's not in natural homeostasis, like you're not thinking effectively, you're not being productive. So the productivity losses in the business from like letting that happen and letting it go unchecked can be significant. And you know, if you do that day after day, week after week, year after year, your workforce gets sick, they go off work, you have like absenteeism, and the business becomes unsustainable. You know, on the flip side, you encourage somebody's well-being in the workplace, and you get productivity gains, you get highly engaged employees who want to run through walls for you. And actually, increasingly, people want to believe in authentic businesses that stand for something and act in the right way, and that they're a force for good. So there's you can no longer say work-life balance matters, then act at odds to that. If work-life balance matters to you as a business and an organization, then kind of supporting your employees will get that like loyalty and that connection, and kind of there's a halo effect in that, not just in your internal brand, but your external brand with your customers and your consumers as well. So there's almost like a P&L benefit for doing it in productivity, but there's almost like this marketing equity as well.
You can use it for all different things, can't you, when you are doing these things, to be that force for good. At the moment, obviously, ridiculously that we're having this conversation now nearly 2 years after it started, but you know, the C word is still around, and we have got people with long COVID in workplaces. And I think the difficult thing is, I'm not sure, I think a lot of people, if they haven't experienced somebody close to them having it, it can be quite difficult for business owners to have a full understanding of the effects of long COVID. I know you've been doing a lot of work with people very successfully with long COVID, and it would be great if you could just tell us a bit more about that and the sort of difficulties people have had and the massive results you've had in quite a short window working with them closely. So that we can understand more about how people have suffered, and the fact that you know they're not just then swinging the lead, that they really are struggling, and supporting them the right way means that then they can come back better and stronger than before.
And I think at the heart of it, again, this will become a theme, but like it's so multifaceted, like no individual is the same. So we label it long COVID, but actually it shows up massively differently in loads of different individuals. And that's why the medical pathway is probably not being as successful as it could be, because with all the best intent in the world, a doctor hasn't got time in a 10, 15 minute, even an hour's appointment to really understand all the factors at play and just how you're going to unpick them. Okay. So, you know what, it's not untypical for somebody who gets referred into the long COVID program that I'm running to have maybe suffered trauma. So maybe they've gone into A&E for COVID and been told they've got 24 to 48 hours to live on a ventilator. And then, you know, on their own, or in some cases with their family who have gone in with them. And in a number of cases, then there's been kind of grief layered into that because not everybody made it through. So some people with long COVID are struggling with grief. Some of them are struggling with trauma. Some have been carers for elderly parents or for partners who may have had some sort of kind of dementia or illness and then have had to go into nursing care, who then they couldn't access during the pandemic because they couldn't get in. So there's guilt layered into that as well. Because they're working, have got kids or grandkids, they then start to eating well. And then there's all the physiological effects. So they've got breathless and, you know, they're getting tired. So they stop doing exercise, they start sleeping more. But then that becomes this kind of spiral of decline because, I don't know, you no longer go for a walk. Well, yeah, you don't go for a walk anymore because it makes you breathless and you're scared again because you don't want to be back in the A&E. So you stop walking. So every time you walk, it does become harder and you do become more breathless and your muscles do deteriorate. So you do get more tired. So there's a real fine line between then encouraging people to start moving forward again, but in a way that doesn't terrify them and move them back. A lot of people have got disordered breathing. They're typically malnourished, and women in particular, and women, again, mentioned peri-post menopause again, but that's quite a big period of somebody's life. It can be kind of 10 years before and 10 years after the actual date of menopause that a woman is in that phase of her life.
That's 20 years.
Yeah, so 20 years a woman can be, we'll digress, but 20 years a woman can be in that kind of phase of her life. And if you think about medical care, there's loads at the front end around periods, conception, like, or, you know, pre-postnatal, but we never look after women at this part of their life. And I'll come back to that in the workplace in a bit. Yeah. This category of women, you know, they've had COVID or gone through these kind of experiences. And because kind of midlife weight gain and hormonal changes is typical in menopause, all of a sudden they think, wow, I'm gaining weight, so I'm not going to eat. But then they don't eat, so their body can't repair from COVID and their metabolism rebases and they get weaker and weaker. And they're just not taking in the range of nutrients to recover and repair. So like so many factors then start to work against them, you know, meanwhile they're off work sick and their sick pay ends. And actually, I guess I'm just giving you a feel for how complicated and how many layers you might need to unpick. And you need to sit with people and say, okay, well, you know, here's some strategies for dealing with your grief or your trauma, and let's try mindfulness maybe, or, you know, let's try thinking about writing kind of a plan for the next 5, 10, 15 years of your life. What do you want that story to be, as opposed to the story that's just happened to you? So you do that internal work first, and then you fix somebody's diet and nutrition. You make sure that they're fueled for repair and for life.
And that's not a mindset thing, because you've already worked on that to allow that to be more successful than if you hadn't done any of that work.
Correct. And you're working at odds to a culture, which is, as a culture, we're so ingrained to think that food and weight and diet are all linked, but from a diet and an image and an external perspective, like, you know, we need to be thin, we need to be toned, we need to be beautiful, all of that. We don't actually think of it talks about
calories, doesn't it? And it doesn't, and it might mention macros, but it doesn't talk about the actual nutrients you need. It's just that you need to live on X amount of calories, and then people don't necessarily make the right choices.
Correct, but it's because our context and our understanding of what we eat is linked to diet in a deprivation perspective. So fat, not fat, eat, don't eat, deprive, don't deprive. And actually, we need to flip our whole belief system around why we eat. We eat because to live, we use energy. Like even when we're asleep, our body is using energy to pump oxygen to our heart and, all around our body. Our metabolism is kind of digesting food and using it as sugars and energy to pump all our muscles. So we have an energy requirement when we're asleep. And then dependent upon our lifestyles, if you're busy with kids and working and walking your dog, your energy level, your energy out is going to be quite high. And we eat to fuel that energy. Like if we undereat, we get tired or we get poorly, because we're not just like you wouldn't get in the car again and drive it to Leeds with no fuel in. Why are we doing that to our body? But we don't think
nothing of doing, do we? We do it. Everyone does it. People do it all the time.
Correct. And then we hear that the amount of people who say to me, "Is it all right not to eat carbs?" Well, not really, because carbs should be 50% of your diet, and that's what digests and gets into your bloodstream to provide you with this energy. And you know what? If you're not having enough carbs and you're not carrying a lot of fat, then if there's an energy gap, your body will just eat muscle and lean tissue, and that makes you weaker again. And
that makes it harder because you haven't got enough.
So how are you going to recover from long COVID, or how are you going to deal with the menopause if you're not literally fueling your lifestyle and health in a really positive way? And that's before we even get onto proteins and all these lovely vitamins and minerals and
of any specific body goal. You've just actually we're just talking about the initial survival thing first.
Correct. And then because we're all about quick fixes and marginal times, we go, okay, well, we need to do some exercise. And we're getting a bit off the long COVID piece here, but we have a belief that, okay, so exercise is a 40-minute spin class. Let us go and work for 45 minutes at peak heart rate and sweat, okay? So, and some people do that first thing in the morning, and then they sit at a desk all day and eat because they're starving, because their body's burned loads of energy, and we typically eat more than we actually burn, and we've just depleted our body and we've just completely stripped it by doing something high energy. And again, we believe exercise is working hard, sweating, going for it, beating somebody up, and again, that context and that belief system doesn't help for these segments of the population that need to exercise and recover. So back to long COVID, people get frustrated because they can no longer do spin or they can no longer run. What you can do is something, I don't know, yoga or chair-based exercise, or go for a walk. And actually that's all your body needs to do as well, to keep stimulating your cardiovascular system, keep your muscles ticking over. But because we can't do all that, we're so polarized into thinking we're failing, and therefore we're doing nothing.
Ourselves up for being useless, and actually that was enough anyway.
Correct. We just, some days and at some phases of our life, we just need to take little steps forward. And if you underpin that with nutrition and you understand that with the powerful reasons, right? But it's about the holistic thing. It's about when you work with people as an employee, as an employer, or a personal trainer, look at them, understand who they are, and then look at their whole life. So how does their whole life stack together? They're a whole person. It isn't just about exercise or nutrition or mindsets and thinking. It's actually about all of it. So it's like their whole of life, and it's about mind as well as body. And this concept of, we think about our physical health a lot, and mental health gets a lot more airplay these days.
Yeah.
But I still think there's a lens of mental health like somebody who's got a problem. Well, actually, it isn't mental health. We all have mental health, which is good and not so good on occasions. And it's good that we understand there's a mental health element as well as a physical health element more these days. But again, they're actually all massively interlinked. So isn't it convenient that you can kind of compartmentalize them and have kind of strategies for each of them? But the problem with traditional approaches to exercise or rehabilitation or wellbeing programs in the workplace, you just tend to do one of them and have these hero actions, when actually you need a program all the time, or an approach that covers all of them. So it's the thinking and the eating and the movement that's what makes us healthy.
I mean, listening to what you say, it's amazing, really. And I think, wouldn't it be great if, and it wouldn't be an overnight thing, of course, but wouldn't it be great if more or every business did start to have that approach, where actually they really try to benefit their employees properly, rather than, like you say, put a bowl of fruit out, and do this kind of more whole of life approach to it. And the difficult thing is that, like, some employers don't necessarily know their employees that well, either. Whereas if you take the time to have the conversations and get to know people, they're going to be more well placed to know that they would benefit from something that you're offering, for example. Because some people,
and I think some of this will come more naturally, having been through what we've been through. So, you know, people now understand, people, because they've had the opportunity to work from home, and, like, you know, it sounds terrible and stereotypical, but more dads have contributed to taking to the children to school and picking them up again, rather than just being forced to sit in the office all day. People have had more time to exercise or walk or be active with their families. They've seen a different way of living. They've seen a different truth. So I don't think these people are going to go back into the workplace. Hopefully they're not going to forget what they've learned and they've experienced. So they are going to demand more of their employer. And unless their employer can say, okay, well, let's work with you on this, what do you need it to look like? Then that resentment will kick in, or their disengagement will kick in, and they'll look for workplaces that will support them to live in that way, because we've all seen the light a little, we've all seen the truth. And I think now employers that do have a wellbeing strategy will engage their workforce much more, but it just makes good business sense as well, because it's more sustainable. It makes them operationally resilient as well, to have people who are well and healthy and energized.
Well, it ups productivity, doesn't it, at the end of the day, which it ups profitability.
Correct.
Just
the really frustrating thing is, I don't think it takes much either. Literally, you could say, right,
you is what would you, you know, I could literally talk to you about this all day. We should do a 12-hour marathon. But what, and I don't like to use the word quick fix, because obviously we're trying to avoid those things. But what could the employers do watching this that would get them off in the right track to helping people and their employees and themselves, because obviously they might not have employees at this stage?
Well, I think at the heart of it is, like, kind of a, again, whole of life holistic coaching approach that underpins it. So even if you're one person, or even if you're like a group of 2 or 3, actually there's great social connection and in working on your health together. So, you know, either as a small group or as one-to-one, you could sit down and work with somebody and say, okay, well, you know, what's your lifestyle at the moment? Talk to me about your lifestyle. Talk to me about, you know, show me a food diary. Talk to me about your exercise habits. How do you feel? You're like, kind of where you're at. You can almost like do a mini surgery on an individual or a group of individuals and say, okay, well, my observations on the way you're currently living your life are X, Y, and Z. And I would recommend you do this either as a group of individuals, or actually you could do it as a team. So why not have Zoom chair-based exercise once a week in the office, and have a personal trainer come one lunchtime a week, and then, you know, submit your food diaries every week for review by some nutrition specialist. So, you know, you could all collectively club together a small amount to fund almost like a weekly program that keeps you on track, having set out a plan. So just as you'd have a business plan for a business or a strategic plan for a business, you have that for your employees as well. So you have a people strategy, which is, you know, theme 1 is we work on personal development and kind of understand what that person wants to achieve in their life, and part of them achieving that is being well, eating well, fueling themselves to live that, and to exercise as well. And you can work with a coach to make that happen. Like in a bigger business, you could have almost like wellbeing surgeries ran at a lunchtime, where people can drop in, and if they want to talk to a health coach, they can come and talk to them, and that conversation might be anything from, you know what, I've got diabetes, or my child has an eating disorder, because families are an important part of this as well. In one employer that I work with, it's been based upon coaching their family to eat better and help their kids concentrate more at school, and stop the mood swings in teenagers through making sure that their diet as a family is underpinned. And that's really successful.
Yeah.
So if you have like
it
well-being,
sense, because a healthy, happier family is going to make for a healthy, happier employee.
correct, because sometimes if you have these workplace surgeries, more often than not, people come in and say, oh, my wife, I don't know, my wife's struggling with X, or so-and-so's got diabetes, or, what, you don't know where it's going to come from, or people are living with, family with Parkinson's, and that's a big weight and a big concern to them. It makes them sad. And then being able to like solve that for their family and friends and loved ones, that's energizing and helpful to them in themselves. And if their employer supports them in that, imagine the loyalty and the return you get from that as well. So your employer has created you the ability to talk to a health coach who is now going to help you solve your problems for you and your family. And maybe the employer pays for that, maybe they pay half for that. But there'll be loads of possible ways you can structure it and shape it and fund it. And sometimes it can be fun. You can end up doing stuff together, set yourself a team challenge, like, I don't know, run 50 miles in a month or over 3 months as a team, and everybody in the team submits their results every week. But you can put loads of mechanics in which actually give you joint goals and shared goals and make it fun as well.
Which
I'll go on forever.
Builds the team massively, doesn't it? Definitely.
Yeah, the answer is there's no one size fits all quick fix. You've got to get to know the individuals, the group of individuals, what they want to achieve, and kind of tailor and build solutions around that.
But definitely to look at how you can do that in your workplace. There is no negative for doing it, essentially. Really it is win-win, isn't it?
Success in life, when you look at all these fulfilled people, I don't think it helps for us to always think work, I go to work, this is the workplace, this is my work life, and this is my home life, and almost like you've got two different people. Actually, the most content people are those which are like, they don't have this kind of split persona. Like, your hours are precious. You shouldn't spend most of your day just working for the benefit of somebody else's.
Yeah.
Like, the more of you in your life you can bring into that, the better it is. So it's almost like a way for the employer as well to make sure that person is living their life in the working day as well.
Yeah, and being the real them and being the actual self.
Correct. And being the human, healthy them who's energized and kind of eating well and kind of all of that. Well, I'll go on forever.
It is amazing. I know you talked about obviously people get referred into your long COVID program and things, but if anyone watching this has got a friend, family member, employee that they know are struggling, is it okay for me to just put your details in and then get in touch with you at the bottom of the page?
Absolutely. More, there's increasingly kind of charities and funders who are wanting to support as well. So depending on your criteria and where you live, there may or there may not be funding to support you. So within Northwest Leicestershire at the moment, there is an element of funding to help people recover from COVID if they're over 18. Okay. But again, I can signpost that to people. If the funding isn't available there right now, then obviously we can structure things privately with them. And at a point in time, there is more funding that opens up, because I think the NHS, I think the councils are increasingly realising that provision of services in the community and within the workplace are really important. So this isn't an area that's, it's not going to go away. The effects of all of this are here for some time. So
it's a shame, but at least we've got people like you fighting the good fight. You will sort us out.
And it's amazing how far people can come in a relatively short space of time when you kind of stack it all up and kind of you get all the right things moving in all the right directions together.
Oh yeah, I mean, I know we've had the odd chat about some of the massive results you've had with some people, and I can't believe it that it's possible in that time. Obviously, it's credit to you, and you must be brilliant. And you've obviously got a formula that works, and it's hearing your passion. It's just really brilliant. So thanks so much for coming on to talk to us. I really appreciate it.
No, I've loved it. Anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I haven't do that marathon session yet. Watch out, people. Thank you. Bye.